The explosion wasn't literal, but the sound felt like one. 1,000 camera shutters fired at once, rapid, sharp, frantic, as the tall glass doors of the conference hall slammed open and the most feared man in Shanghai strode inside. Jianyu, the billionaire who never spoke publicly. The ghost who built an empire of steel and silence. The man every journalist tonight had come hoping, praying to hear. And suddenly, he was walking straight toward her. Aria Nwosu froze where she stood on stage, earpiece buzzing softly with the frantic voice of the stage manager. Translator, hold position. Do not move. He wasn't supposed to. Aria, do not move. But she couldn't move even if she wanted to, because Jianyu's presence hit like cold fire. He was dressed in a black suit so sharply tailored it looked carved, not sewn. His hair was slicked back with quiet precision. His eyes, those unreadable, obsidian eyes, swept over the hall without a single flicker of emotion. Until they landed on her. And for one impossible second he stopped walking. Aria's breath caught. Her fingers tightened around the folder of documents. She hadn't expected this. Nobody had. She was just here to translate. To stand behind a podium, speak Mandarin and English and melt into the background like a shadow. But Jianyu was staring at her like she'd stepped out of a memory he'd spent years trying to forget. A wave of whispers rippled through the audience. Why is he looking at her? Who is she? The translator. Is she special to him? Her heart pounded so hard she thought the microphone pinned to her jacket might pick it up. Jianyu blinked once, slow, deliberate, then continued toward the stage with that smooth, intimidating stride. 3 bodyguards followed behind him like silent wolves. Aria swallowed. Dear God, he's going to speak today. The press erupted as he climbed the stairs. Flashes. Questions. Shouts. Mr. Lee, is it true your board is changing direction? Will you address the scandal? He raised one hand. Just a hand. And the room fell silent. Completely. Terrifyingly. Aria felt her pulse in her throat as he stepped beside her. He didn't look at the audience. Didn't look at the cameras. He looked at her. Miss Nwosu. His voice was deep, smooth, and cold, used to commanding, not conversing. Her stomach flipped. You will translate everything I say, he murmured. Exactly as I say it. She nodded, breathless. Yes, sir. Jianyu's jaw tightened. He stepped to the podium, leaned forward slightly, and spoke. But not to the reporters. Not to the cameras. His first public words in years were spoken directly to her. And in Mandarin so soft only her microphone and her ears could catch it. Someone is conspiring to overthrow me. Aria's blood ran cold. She stared at him, stunned. This wasn't a business statement. This wasn't a press conference speech. This was a warning, a confession, a secret meant for no one else. Her voice shook as she translated. Someone is conspiring to overthrow me. The reporters exploded in chaos. But Jianyu didn't flinch. His eyes stayed on hers. You weren't supposed to hear this, he said quietly in Mandarin. Yet here you are. Aria's breath trembled. Why tell me? He leaned in, just enough for the world to think he was simply making a point, but close enough that only she felt the chill of his breath against her ear. Because, he whispered, you already heard the rest last night. Her heart stopped. He knew. He knew she had overheard that private conversation in the hallway. She thought she'd slipped away unnoticed. She hadn't. Her lips parted. Mr. Lee, I didn't mean. Later, he murmured. We'll discuss what you heard, privately. Her hands trembled around the microphone. Her entire future trembled. And then, a flicker of motion behind the curtain. A shadow. Jianyu's eyes snapped toward it, sharp as blades. He leaned closer, voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. You're not safe anymore, Miss Nwosu. He stepped away from her with icy grace, straightened his suit, and addressed the crowd in crisp Mandarin. Next question. Aria translated mechanically, but she couldn't feel her legs. Only one thought echoed through her mind as he spoke. I'm in danger. I know something I wasn't meant to know. And the most powerful man in Shanghai knows I know it. When the conference ended, Jianyu walked off stage without a glance at the reporters. But he did look back once. At her. A subtle tilt of his head. A silent command. Follow me. And Aria realized, with a shiver that sank into her bones. Her life had just been rewritten. The hallway behind the conference stage was darker than it should have been.
Too quiet.
Too empty. Too intentional. Aria's heels clicked softly as she followed Li Jianyu through the private corridor, his long stride silent, his expression unreadable. He hadn't said a word since the press conference ended.
Not one.
But the air around him felt charged, like a storm deciding where to strike. At last he stopped. No warning. No gesture. Just a sudden halt so abrupt that Aria nearly bumped into him. Jianyu turned.
Slowly.
Deliberately. His eyes locked onto hers with a force that made her breath falter. Last night, he said, voice low and controlled. You were in the east wing of this building. Not a question. A statement of fact. Aria's pulse skipped. I got lost. I wasn't trying to listen. You heard my board planning my removal. Flat. Sharp. A blade disguised as a sentence. She swallowed hard. Yes, but I didn't tell anyone. I didn't even understand everything. You understood enough. Silence. Not peaceful, dangerous. Then Jianyu stepped closer. And closer. Until the cool scent of him, clean, expensive, unapproachable, filled her senses. Miss Nwosu. Her name sounded different in his voice. Like a verdict. You are now in possession of information that people would kill for. Her breath caught. Kill. He raised one hand, not to touch her, but to gently tilt her chin upward with a single finger under her jaw. Just one. It wasn't intimate. It wasn't gentle. It was claiming. I cannot allow you to go home tonight. Her legs nearly gave out. What? She whispered. Why? Jianyu's eyes slid down to her parted lips, then back up again as if assessing her fear or memorizing it. Because if I let you leave this building, he murmured, you will not survive the night. The ground slipped from beneath her.
Someone saw you, he said.
Someone knows you overheard them. And they assume I told you more. No, her voice trembled. No one knows me. I'm just a translator. You are standing on stage beside me. Jianyu cut in softly. That alone marks you. She stared at him, heartbeat shaking her ribs. Then, what happens now? His answer was slow. Precise. Dangerous. You will stay where I can see you. Before she could speak, a man approached. One of his private security. Black suit. Masked expression. Eyes like a soldier. Sir. The guard said, bowing slightly. Your instructions? Jianyu didn't look away from her face. Prepare my private floor. She will not return to her apartment. His voice dropped to a steel-edged whisper. She stays under my protection. Aria's chest tightened. Her protection. Or his captivity. The guard bowed. Yes, Chairman Li. Chairman.
Not CEO.
Chairman was a title given to only one type of man, the kind whose word could move cities. Jianyu stepped back, but only a little. Gather your belongings, he said. You have 15 minutes. I don't understand why. Aria. The first time he said her name, without formality. It hit her like heat in a cold room. Do not argue with me, he murmured. Your life depends on obedience. The words stole the air from her lungs. And then, he turned, coat shifting like a shadow, and walked down the hallway. But halfway through he paused. Didn't turn. Didn't look back. Just spoke. Bring me the letter. Aria froze. What letter? The one you carry with you always, he said. Written in Chinese. From your father. Her heart slammed painfully. How could he possibly? You read the envelope every morning, Jianyu continued softly. On the metro. At the university. In the cafe near your apartment. You think you hide it well, Miss Nwosu. You don't. Her hands trembled. That letter was her private wound. Her quiet grief. The only thing her father left before disappearing from her life forever. How do you know about it? She whispered. Jianyu looked over his shoulder at last. And the expression he wore. Not cold. Not empty. But something darker. Something she couldn't name. Something that made her entire body tense. I've seen that handwriting before. A pause.
A breath.
A confession wrapped in ice. And I need to be certain it's really his. Her lips parted. You knew my father? Jianyu didn't blink. I knew the man he worked for. Then he walked away, leaving Aria shaken, breathless, and swallowed by a truth she did not understand. She returned 10 minutes later, bag in hand, letter clutched to her chest, and found Jianyu waiting beside the private elevator. The doors slid open. He stepped inside, then extended a hand toward her. Not touching, just waiting, inviting her into a world she couldn't escape from now. Stay close, he said softly. And she did, because the door to her old life closed with a soft, final click behind them. The private elevator rose in absolute silence. No soft hum, no mechanical shudder, just a smooth, eerily quiet ascent toward the top of the tower where Li Jianyu lived. Aria stood to his right, clutching the strap of her bag with trembling fingers. His presence filled the space like a shadow with a heartbeat. Still, calm and devastatingly aware of her. The elevator walls reflected them in silver. Her, small, shaken, uncertain, him, tall, rigid, carved from discipline. She could feel his gaze without looking. Then, give it to me. His voice broke the silence. Aria blinked. Give you what? Jianyu's head turned slightly, eyes lowering to her trembling hands. The letter. Her breath caught. She hesitated. His jaw tightened a fraction. Do you think I want to steal it? He asked quietly. No, she whispered. It's all I have of him. A muscle in his cheek flexed. Without warning, he reached out, slowly, deliberately, and wrapped his fingers around her wrist. Not tight, not painful, but firm enough that her pulse hammered against his palm. I will not take it from you, he murmured. But I need to see it. The elevator chimed. The doors slid open. But Jianyu didn't release her. Not yet. He guided her out with a slight pressure at her wrist, so subtle, yet so unmistakably possessive it made her exhale shakily. The hallway to his private floor was vast, dimly lit, with soft gold sconces and black marble floors that reflected their shadows. Guards stood at discreet points along the corridor. Every man bowed his head respectfully as Jianyu passed. None looked at Aria. Until Jianyu spoke. She is under my protection.
Cold.
Sharp. Issued like a decree. The guards answered in unison. Yes, Chairman Li. Aria's stomach twisted. She wasn't a guest. She was a responsibility. Or worse, a liability. Jianyu opened the door to a suite that looked like a palace carved from winter. White walls. Soft gray marble. Glass overlooking the entire city. Minimal furniture. Everything expensive, precise, silent. Aria felt small just standing there. Jianyu loosened his tie with one hand, the motion elegant, controlled. Sit. Her breath hitched at the command. Not harsh. Not kind. Just inevitable. She sat on the edge of a sleek black sofa. Jianyu didn't sit. He stood before her, untouchable, a dark silhouette against the skyline. His eyes lowered to her bag. The letter. With trembling fingers, she reached inside and pulled out the envelope.
Old. Worn.
Creased from years of holding it close. Jianyu extended his hand. She placed it on his palm. The moment his fingers touched the paper, his entire expression changed. Not dramatically, but enough. A flicker. A tightening. A shadow crossing his gaze. He opened the envelope and unfolded the letter with careful, almost reverent hands. Then he read. Silence. Long, heavy. Painful. Aria stared at him, searching his face. Do you know what it says? She asked softly. Yes. Her heart pounded. What is it? He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he refolded the letter, slow, precise, and handed it back to her. This handwriting, he said, voice low, belongs to a man who worked for my family's internal security division. Her skin prickled. Internal security? He nodded once. My father trusted only a few men. Your father was one of them. Aria's throat went dry. You really knew him? I knew of him, Jianyu corrected, but I knew the work he handled. She hesitated. What kind of work? This time he broke eye contact, just for a second, just enough for her to feel something was wrong. I believe, he said, voice heavy, that your father disappeared because of something he uncovered. Something involving my family. Something dangerous enough that, even now, people are willing to kill for it. Her chest tightened painfully. My father died because of your family? Jianyu's gaze snapped back to hers, sharp, dark, commanding.
No, a beat.
But softer. I don't know. Yet. Aria pressed a hand against her lips, holding back a surge of emotion. Then, last night, he continued, when you were in that hallway, you heard the same people who orchestrated your father's disappearance. Her breath shattered. She didn't even realize she'd whispered. Oh, God. Jianyu stepped closer, until his shadow fell over her, until she had to tilt her head up to keep staring at him. This is why you cannot leave, he said. This is why I brought you here. Her voice cracked. To protect me? He inhaled softly, as if the word unsettled him. Yes, he said. But also because... He stopped. Aria's heart thudded. Because what? Jianyu's hand lifted, slowly, then stopped midair, as if he had to force himself not to touch her. Because losing you, he said quietly, would destroy me. Her breath caught. Her entire body froze. Her voice came out in a whisper. You barely know me. His eyes burned into hers. I noticed you long before tonight. Her lips parted. Jianyu lowered himself to kneel in front of her, a sight so disarming she almost stopped breathing. I saw you translating at a summit 3 months ago, he murmured. The precision of your tone. The calm in your eyes. The way you disappeared into your work. He shook his head slightly. I told myself not to look again. Aria felt heat rise beneath her skin. But I did, he whispered. Silence stretched between them, intimate, aching, forbidden. Then, a violent knock shook the door. Jianyu stood instantly, expression shifting from confessional to lethal. Chairman, a guard shouted. We have a breach. Aria's heart jumped. What breach? Jianyu grabbed her hand, warm, strong, unyielding. Stay behind me. Jianyu. Do not let go. The lock clicked. Shadows moved outside. And Aria understood. This was no longer about secrets. Someone was coming for her. The mountain safe house rose above the city, like a fortress of glass and stone. Jianyu's private helicopter had landed silently on the rooftop pad. Aria, still clutching the letter from her father, could barely take in her surroundings. Snow dusted the dark green pines, sharp and cold, yet the air inside the glass-walled sanctuary was warm, almost unnaturally so. Stay close, Jianyu said, voice low, dangerous, steady. He never let go of her hand, and she never thought she'd be grateful for it. Inside, everything was minimalistic perfection. Black lacquer furniture, white marble floors. Every line, every corner, spoke of control and precision. And yet it didn't feel cold, not when he was near. Sit, he commanded softly, leading her to a sleek sofa. But instead of sitting, she remained standing, too aware of him, too aware of herself. You're tense, he observed. Not accusatory, not gentle, observational. But it struck her to the core. I'm not used to this, she admitted. Being watched. Jianyu's eyes darkened. Watched. He tilted his head, assessing. You are not being watched. You are being protected. The distinction made her stomach twist. Was it protection or possession? He knelt slightly to pick up her father's letter from the coffee table. He read it again, this time slowly, deliberately, committing each word to memory. Aria noticed the faint tremor in his fingers. A man like Jianyu didn't tremble. A man like him didn't feel, at least, that was what everyone said. And yet here he was. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time seemed meaningless when they were alone in the silence of that mountain retreat. You know, he began quietly, The people who orchestrated your father's disappearance, they're still out there.
Her chest tightened.
She looked away, wrapping her arms around herself. I don't understand. Why are you helping me? Why risk yourself? He stepped closer, so close that the heat of his presence enveloped her. You think I'm helping you? He asked, voice low, dangerous, almost teasing.
No.
I'm saving something I didn't know I wanted. Until now. Her breath hitched. What does that mean? He tilted his head, studying her like she was fragile crystal. Until I met you, I believed people existed to serve purposes. Business, family, profit, power. You are none of those. You exist for yourself. And for some reason that terrifies me. Aria's throat went dry. Terrifies you? She whispered. Yes, he said. Because I don't know what to do with something I want and cannot control. And then something impossible happened. He lowered his face to hers. The air between them thickened, charged with a silent storm. Their lips nearly touched, just a whisper away. And she felt it, the melt beneath his ice, the vulnerability hidden under the steel. Do you feel it too? He asked softly, his forehead almost brushing hers. Yes, she breathed, shivering, not from the cold, but from him. The room seemed to shrink around them. Every glance, every half-step, every soft inhale felt like trespassing forbidden territory. And then, without warning, he kissed her. Not harsh, not desperate. Slow, intentional, a soft claim that startled her, yet anchored her at the same time. Her hands flew to his chest instinctively, feeling the power beneath her touch. He didn't move away. He deepened the kiss, but never rushed it. Every second was deliberate, like he was teaching her the rhythm of his heart. When they finally broke apart, his eyes were dark, smoldering, vulnerable. I cannot promise this will end well, he murmured. But I cannot let it end at all. Aria's lips trembled. She nodded. Then, I won't let it. Jianyu finally straightened, distancing himself just enough to regain control. Tomorrow, he said, voice flat but loaded, you will begin training. Not just to translate, but to understand. If we survive the night, if your enemies strike again, you need to know the truth about your father.
About my family.
About why they tried to kill him. Her pulse thundered. She had expected danger. She had expected secrets. But never this proximity to the man who now held her life and her heart in his hands. Tomorrow, she whispered, I'll be ready. He gave her a glance that made her shiver to her bones.
Good.
Because I will not let you leave my side. Not ever. And if you think that is a choice, that is not. Aria's lips parted, heart hammering. The ice around him had melted, revealing fire. And she realized she didn't want to escape it. The city looked peaceful from the top of Jianyu's safe house. Twinkling lights stretched into the distance, like stars fallen to earth. But Aria knew better. She felt it in her gut. The calm before a storm was never this silent. Her fingers gripped the edge of the glass railing. The letter from her father lay open on the counter behind her, every word a weight she couldn't shake. And yet, the danger pressing down on her felt far heavier. Aria, Jianyu's voice cut through the silence. She turned to see him standing just a few feet away, eyes like polished obsidian, unreadable yet full of fire. They're coming. Her heart skipped a beat. She whispered. Jianyu didn't answer immediately. Instead, he stepped closer, his long coat brushing the floor, his presence swallowing the room. Then, cold and precise, your father's enemies. And mine. It began with the sound of glass shattering. Not a warning. Not subtle. A window on the opposite side of the safe house exploded inward. Shards rained down like deadly confetti. Aria, behind me, Jianyu snapped. She dove instinctively, stumbling into his arms. His hands were firm on her back, holding her close as if she were a fragile flame he could not let extinguish. Gunfire followed, the sound deafening, echoing through the marble halls. Jianyu moved like liquid steel, one arm around her waist, the other drawing a pistol from his coat. Every shot fired was precise, controlled, deadly. Aria's world spun in a mix of terror and awe. She had never been this close to violence, and she had never felt so intensely alive. In the chaos, Aria glimpsed familiar faces among the attackers. Figures from her father's past. Figures she never expected to see alive, or aligned with Jianyu's enemies. Her mind reeled. Why are they here?" she yelled, trying to keep her voice steady over the gunfire. "They never stopped hunting your family," Jianyu growled, firing a precise shot that took down a man attempting to flank them. "They think your father owes them payment, and they will take it from you if I do not stop them." She shivered at the words. The threat. The truth. The blood that could be spilled because of her father's choices, and hers. A heavy crash echoed as an attacker barreled through the doorway. Jianyu pushed her aside. The force sent her sprawling across the marble floor. A gunshot rang out. Jianyu's shoulder erupted in pain. He grunted but didn't falter, using the wound as fuel, not weakness. "Aria, run," he shouted. "No," she screamed, scrambling back to him. "You're too important to lose." They fought side by side, moving with an unspoken synchronicity born from trust forged in terror. Aria realized, with a jolt, how much she depended on him, how much she needed him. Even as the attackers closed in, even as blood spilled, even as fear threatened to crush her, she felt an undeniable, fierce connection. When the dust settled, silence fell again. Bodies lay strewn across the safehouse floor, unconscious or worse. Jianyu's shoulder was bleeding heavily, the wound deep, but he stood. Strong. Unbroken. Dominant. Aria ran to him, pressing her hands to the blood, to his chest, trembling. "You're hurt," she cried. "You could have died." He caught her hands, holding them against him. "Listen to me," he said, voice rough but steady, eyes burning into hers. "No one will hurt you again. I won't let them. Ever." Her tears fell freely now. Not just from fear, from realization. From desire. From trust. From the intensity of someone willing to risk everything for her. Jianyu pulled her into a tight embrace, ignoring the pain in his shoulder, and whispered against her hair. "You are mine. And I will not lose you. Not now. Not ever." For the first time, Aria understood the depth of the man she had been drawn to, the darkness, the obsession, the love that was as dangerous as it was undeniable. And she knew that nothing would ever be the same. The city had never looked so quiet. From the top of Jianyu's safe house, Shanghai stretched out like a sea of diamonds, cold, glittering, and indifferent. But inside, everything was aflame with emotion. Aria stood by the glass wall, the final piece of her father's letter in her hands. She had read it fully now. Every word, every secret, every warning. And for the first time, she understood the depth of what had happened. Her father had not abandoned her. He had protected her. And Jianyu had carried that protection even further, risking everything to save her. Jianyu was seated in the corner of the suite, his shoulder bandaged, eyes dark and guarded, but softer than she had ever seen them. "Did you read it?" he asked quietly, voice careful, almost afraid of her reaction. Aria looked at him, tears welling. "I did. I understand now." He rose, limping slightly from the injury, but his presence remained commanding. "You understand what it means?" he pressed. "I understand," she whispered, stepping closer. "Not just about my father, but about you. About what you've done for me." Jianyu's eyes flickered, something she had never seen before. Vulnerability. "You can't possibly know how hard it's been," he admitted. "To see danger at every turn. To fight people who would see you dead, just to protect someone I could barely speak to without risking everything. And yet, I couldn't stay away." Aria's breath caught. "You care?" His voice dropped, barely above a whisper. "More than I should. More than is safe. But I cannot unsee you. Cannot forget you. And now, I cannot imagine losing you." Her heart pounded in her chest as she stepped closer. The distance between them shrank until it felt like the world had narrowed to only their breathing, their presence, the unspoken words between them. "Jianyu," she whispered. He reached out, fingers brushing hers, holding her hand as if it were the most fragile thing in existence. You can't imagine what it's like, he murmured, to have someone you barely know, yet cannot let go. To have a life that is yours, yet feel like you are tethered to mine. Aria swallowed hard, her fingers tightening around his. I choose you, she said softly, a single phrase that carried years of fear, hope, and desire. Jianyu's lips captured hers before she could take a step back. Not hurried, not reckless, deliberate,
Fierce.
tender. Everything he had been, dangerous, dominant, obsessed, melded into one perfect moment of surrender. Her arms went around his neck instinctively. His hands cradled her face, then her waist, pulling her impossibly close. Every heartbeat, every shiver, every brush of lips spoke louder than words ever could. And in that kiss, the walls of fear, doubt, and danger melted. For the first time, Aria felt safe, not from the world, but in Jianyu's presence. When they finally pulled apart, faces inches apart, breath mingling, Jianyu's voice was low, steady, commanding, yet filled with an emotion he rarely allowed anyone to see. You are mine, he whispered. Not by ownership, not by power, but by choice. And I will fight for you every single day, until the end. Aria smiled through tears, pressing her forehead to his. I am yours, she replied softly, and I will fight with you. For the first time, both of them allowed themselves to believe. The enemies who had tried to destroy her, the secrets that had almost torn her family apart, the dangers lurking in the shadows, they still existed. But together, they were unstoppable. And as the first light of dawn broke over Shanghai, spilling gold across the city, Aria knew one thing for certain. Love, even forbidden and dangerous, could survive, even thrive. And some truths, once fully revealed, were worth fighting for together. Weeks had passed since the chaos, the gunfire, the near-death moments. The city of Shanghai moved on, oblivious to the storm that had raged in the towers above. But Aria and Jianyu, they had not moved on. They had survived. They had chosen each other. Aria stood in the kitchen of Jianyu's private penthouse, sunlight spilling across her dark hair. She stirred a cup of tea, her mind drifting to the night that had changed everything. The letter from her father sat on the counter, folded neatly. She had read it countless times. Each time, it revealed more than just words, it revealed truth. Jianyu entered silently, hands in his pockets, but his presence filled the room as always. He stopped behind her, fingers brushing her shoulder. Tea, he asked softly. Yes, she murmured, turning slightly to meet his gaze. His eyes, dark, intense, unreadable, softened when they landed on her. You're smiling, he said. She laughed quietly. I am. Because you didn't let me go.
Not then. Not now.
Not ever. Jianyu's hand found hers. Never, he whispered. And I never will. They moved through the city like shadows, careful, unseen but never apart. Every press conference, every board meeting, every private threat reminded them that danger existed. But it no longer controlled them. Jianyu trained her, not just in Mandarin nuance, but in reading people, reading threats, anticipating the unseen. She had grown stronger, braver, sharper, and he had learned to let someone in, to love someone fully, without restraint. One evening, high above the city, they stood together on the terrace. The wind whipped through Aria's hair, the glow of neon reflected in Jianyu's obsidian eyes. He reached for her hand, interlacing their fingers. Do you regret it? He asked softly. Choosing me? Aria shook her head. Not for a second. His lips found hers in a gentle, lingering kiss, one that spoke of survival, trust, and a love that had been forged in fire. She pressed against him, heart racing, feeling the warmth that had melted the coldness around him. I promise, Jianyu whispered against her lips. I will always protect you.
Always choose you.
Always fight for you. Aria smiled, resting her forehead against his. And I'll always be yours. Together, they rebuilt not just their lives, but the legacies of those they had lost. The secrets of the past were no longer chains. They were bridges. Bridges that brought them closer. Bridges that allowed them to face every danger together. And as the city lights shimmered beneath them, endless and alive, Aria realized some love stories weren't meant to be easy. Some love stories weren't safe. But some were worth every risk. And theirs was unstoppable.